This is the second video in our series on how to budget your money when your paycheck is on a biweekly cycle, but your bills are on a monthly cycle. In our last video, we went over the paycheck to paycheck method, which is the method that I've used for most of my adult life, on and off with varying degrees of success. A nice thing about the paycheck to paycheck method is it's fairly intuitive. A drawback to it is that it has a fair number of moving parts. For instance, you need at bare minimum a calendar, a monthly budget, and at least 2 biweekly budgets. Another drawback applies to people who get paid on the same day of the week every other week. In our example from our last video, we assumed that you get paid on the same 2 days every month, specifically on the 1st and the 16th. But for instance, if you get paid every Friday, then your first paycheck this month might be on the 5th and your second might be on the 19th, in which case the first 4 days of this month aren't even funded by your first paycheck of the month. They're funded by the last paycheck of last month. Similarly, your paycheck on the 19th would not just fund days in this month, it would also fund a couple days next month. So you have to take more calendar days into consideration, and also you might have something called bill shift, where the bills you have to pay with your paychecks change from month to month. Another problem with the paycheck to paycheck budgeting method is the bills in one of your biweekly periods might actually exceed the amount of your paycheck. For instance, in our last video, period 2 had to pay $1,200 in bills. Well, what if, for example, your car died and you really needed a car to get to work, so you bought a new car and your new car payment is $800 and it's in period 2. Well, now your bills in period 2 exceed the amount of your paycheck. In order to pay for your expenses in period 2, you're going to have to borrow from period 1. And to do this, we're going to use something called dollar cost averaging. With a paycheck to paycheck budget, we had to divide our budget categories into 2 groups, fixed costs and variable costs. And we used different formulas to fund the categories in those groups. With dollar cost averaging, there's just one formula. You take the amount in your monthly budget column and you divide it by 2, and that's how much money you put towards each category in each 2-week period. Since you're using the same amount of money in both periods, you don't need all these columns anymore. All you need is a monthly column and a biweekly column. Since we've added $800 worth of bills to our budget, we're going to have to recalculate a few things. I've shown you how to create a biweekly budget using the dollar cost averaging method. What I haven't shown you is how to effectuate it. Now, what you're going to need first is to identify day 1, the first day that you're going to try to live off this budget. Then you're going to need to fund whatever account you pay your bills with, and you're going to need to fund it with 1.5 paychecks. The way this budget works, each payday, only half of that paycheck goes towards the current period. The other half goes towards the next period. And that's why we need half a paycheck up front, because that day 1 paycheck, only 50% of it is going towards the first 2 weeks. Therefore, we need another week's worth of funds. The point of this is to simplify your budget by having the same exact amount of money being put towards all of your budget categories every 2 weeks. regardless of the actual expenses in those weeks. Now, your bank account is going to look a little weird because some weeks you're going to have more money than usual in it, other weeks you'll have less money than usual in it, but it should all average out so that all your bills are getting paid on time. That said, I would hang on to your budget calendar, at least in the beginning, while you're getting used to this new method of budgeting, since it does introduce a level of abstraction to your finances. Plus, we all have bills that are quarterly or semi-annual or annual on top of our monthly bills, and those can sneak up on you. You should be planning for those bills and funding them in your sinking funds, but just in case you're not or you missed one, I would hang on to the calendar for now.